representative of the National Democratic Congress. And this morning I have in studio with me Raymond Roberts, a.k.a. Uncle Ray. Good morning, Uncle Ray.
Blossom, good to see you, and good morning to all our listeners and viewers, wherever you may be. Trust it's been a wonderful day thus far, and I hope the rest of the day would blossom.
I love it when my name is used in such positive terms.
As I say to Gatti, it's the best name in the world.
Oh, say it again, Uncle Ray. So happy to have you. I think this is the first time I've seen you for the year. I can still tell you Happy New Year.
It is. Happy New Year to you too, and it's always good and refreshing to get warm greetings.
Exactly. Good. So let's get right into it. I don't want to start the program off on a sad note, but I know there have been two recent passings that I'm sure you would have, some thoughts and emotions on Mr. Dennis Noel as well.
As our former colleague workers.
Yeah, sorry. The emotions hit me.
Right.
Yes. So your thoughts on these two?
Well, let me start and offer the GBN family and the family of Kennedy Bowen. I want to express our sincere condolence to the entire contingent. I worked with Kennedy because, as you may recall, I worked here for quite a number of years as news director, and Kennedy was one of the engineers with Jay and quite a long list of others. And he was one of the people who went beyond the extra mile. And I saw him about 2 weeks ago in Real Value, and I said to him, now that you are a millionaire, do you remember those who can't make 1,000? And we had a good little laughter. I was surprised when a former colleague also, Jojo, called me and said, you heard anything? I said, no. He said, our friend Kennedy passed on. So I know it's never easy at this stage of life for families, particularly when you look healthy. You only look healthy, and you're going around, and then all of a sudden you see it appears on Facebook or wherever it is. So I want to say to the family, I think he did a wonderful journey, and we are not in control. God is in control, and have faith and recognize that life has to go on, and at some point in time, our chapter 2 will end as his end. So my condolence again to the family of Kennedy Bowen, and certainly the media community, which he spent so many years of his life. Well, our friend Dennis Noel, he was one of our candidates in the 90s. Dennis was an extraordinary talent. That's my thinking and our party thinking. If you look back at Dennis, not just in politics, but really in agriculture and the entrepreneur he was. I mean, he was certainly second to none. And in every aspect of life, I could just see him. Well, I saw him as a positive influence on Grenada. I was fortunate when I joined the public service in the mid to late 70s. He was in agriculture, and the Prime Minister's office, it was in the Botanical Gardens there. Our department was close to his, so I remember the whole list of them. He was the Chief Technical Officer, and in fact, on Friday in Cameron Park, we were going over that list, and very few of that group, that category of excellent professionals are with us. Dennis worked just not at the top, but at the bottom. I mean, he was a generous person wherever he went, not just to St. Andrew. And we will remember the Chelsea Flower Show. How many years Dennis was behind that thing. I mean, those who know really know, but Dennis was a giant of a contributor to Grenada. And I saw a piece at the weekend, because once we had a conversation, he said to me, you didn't know I played football for Grenada. He said, in the 50s, 60s, he used to be one of the better players. He was a left back or something of the sort. And I noticed in one of the tributes from Dr. Winston Phillip, a great piece that was on Facebook, he highlighted that issue. So Dennis was just an all-round person with a vast array of talent. And to his family, again, we of the NDC family want to extend our deepest condolence, and we pray God that the family will have the faith and courage to recognize, again, it is God's work and we have to move on.
All right. Okay, so let's get into the party now. 2020, we're deep inside 2020. We're almost to the middle of the second month of 2020. What are some of the plans and so of the party going forward into 2020?
Well, since our convention, there has been an upsurge in interest and clearly a revival from what occurred in 2017. I would want to credit Sister Franca Bernardine for demonstrating what we know she all has, which is tremendous leadership of tolerance, leadership of patience, and among a whole array, and much time. She's spending much time not just to talk and criticize, but we are doing, I would say, tremendous internal party work. It's not a weekend without some form of activity. It's perhaps hectic because it's all volunteer, nobody's getting paid. We don't have the resources as the other side. But I would say what we have now is that we are seeing a group that is emerging, both young and old and middle-aged, a group that is emerging that is willing to go the distance. And the distance is not easy. If you run a marathon, you would know the most difficult part of the marathon. It's not the start. It's the conclusion when your energy and so forth is being sapped. Well, we recognize that to be a government, we have to do basic work. There has to be greater connection with the ordinary man and woman as well as the top, but very important, the numbers are always at the bottom. Our message cannot be a message on Facebook, on radio, and television only. It has to be a face-to-face engagement, knocking at the doors no matter what you say. Still is the best way to meet people. And if you were looking at last night news on the BBC, you would see that the candidates in New Hampshire, they were knocking doors. The temperature was what? In the low 20s or wherever it is. And they were doing what it takes to get people to get their message. We are not yet at the stage of knocking doors, but we are at the stage now where we want our people, and we say our people, Grenadians in general, particularly the people who support our party, to recognize that this is a period of re-registration. You can talk as much as you want. If you do not re-register, you certainly will not be able to cast a vote. So we have the 15 constituencies, again, without any money, focusing on volunteerism to encourage people and to motivate people to take the time to go to your parliamentary electoral office and be on the list of people who have re-registered. We have some concern with the process, and we want to say that we're disappointed that the Parliamentary Electoral Office, did not actually consider the recommendations that was put forward by civil society. We believe that is necessary because in Grenada there is a crisis of confidence. If you talk to people either distrust just about everything, including politicians. So yes, we are doing it. It's going to be very time-consuming because, as you know, during election, when elections are called, if you look at the numbers in front of the Parliamentary Electoral Office, it's just, you wonder, why have people waited that long? So yes, we are out there aggressively to some extent, but with a lot of tolerance, trying to encourage not just the young, but the old and citizens in general to recognize that is perhaps the foremost democratic right that you have, because that's only how you can elect, the people who want to represent you.
Right.
So that is a challenge we are certainly pursuing with a lot of vigor. Yes, we are doing other things too. We have had retreats. We have had engagement. Sister Franca has visited a number of the constituencies. And I may tell you that I was in one. It was well attended. And we were surprised that we could have, on a Monday evening, which is the first working day, bring out 52 accurate numbers I'm giving you. So I'm not saying approximately 52. We did a count. And in fact, the meeting had to be brought to an end because the questions and the enthusiasm and what we should do and what we shouldn't do, that just kept flowing. So that was positive, and I'm sure she is elated at the positive response she has had thus far, not just from those of us who elected her, but from Grenadians in general.
Earlier you mentioned there were some suggestions made by civil society and the party is disappointed that they weren't put into action. What would you say would be the top suggestion you think more consideration could have been given to?
Well, I think I saw a letter actually to civil society, and when they met sometime in January, there was some agreement that they would review the process of the date being on the new ID card re-expiry, and there was also some discussion as to making changes to the Representation of the People's Act. And looking at a letter that was sent January 28 to civil society and signed by Mr. Moraine, who is the supervisor of elections acting, it says here, this is to inform you that upon detailed examination of the Representation of the People's Act, it is clear that there is no need for any amendment to facilitate the replacement of voter ID cards, which will expire January 31st. Now, I'm saying I was not at the meeting, our party was not at the meeting, we're not part of a civil society, we are a political organization. Clearly, what you want is a buy-in from people who are neutral. Clearly, when you go to vote, you vote for whoever you want, but civil society is not made up of any of the two political parties. So it would have been, to me, to the advantage of Grenada, because you have back and forth now as to perceptions. And yes, the Attorney General is the government point man and issues like that. But it is always better, to me, and the experience I've had having worked with government for as long as 37 years, is that when you get a buy-in from people, the wider cross-section of society, there is greater digestion. I think more and more, if you look at some of the things, I don't really believe in everything I see on Facebook. I treat it as generally entertainment. But some of the articles are very much pointed at that. If you have a voter registration card and there isn't an expiry date printed on it, I mean, does it really expire? So people question these things, and then there's a loss in confidence, respect. You know, you don't want a repeat of one of our sister OECS countries in Grenada. You want Grenada to be a standout. I mean, it must just be. You know, I still have a negative whenever I hear citizenship by investment and these people can vote. I mean, who are these folks? I don't know them. They come in the dark of the night, they buy everything. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't have the program. That's not my contention. The contention, I believe, of our party is that the program is there, but it has to be of greater transparency. You can't have people showing up with passport and showing up with, first of all, some of them can't speak our language. They are brought there by people who want them to vote for them, and that occurred in the South. So we're saying things like that. You cast an aspersion as to how people believe the winner was, you know, whoever won was achieved.
For coming out of the 2018 general elections and the 2013 general elections, one of the greatest concerns was the number of people who did not vote. They have been registered but did not participate in voting. How does the party intend to at least get these people to exercise their franchise, to whichever direction they cast their ballots, but to ensure that they participate and have a say into who the next government is?
Well, that's of the greatest interest to us because clearly, let me identify the South because that's where I am from. There were 2,000 plus didn't vote, 2,003 or 500 people didn't vote. The winner was by 703 votes. So quite clearly, there is a large number who can make a difference. What I know that constituencies are doing is to vet the list, because you would certainly know from your canvassers and the people who are in your polling division the names that didn't turn up to vote. For one reason, some may be religious purposes, some may be they don't like the choices that were available. So we're spending time going through the list, and very key, trying to at least initiate communication with whoever they are I guess the other side may be doing the same thing too. But that is important to us. And that is something should be of concern to the entire nation. You can't have such large numbers of people not interested in a democratic process, because that is what will determine wherever the country goes. I mean, the government you put in office, the people you elected. To do that blindly is really to sell yourself cheap. It's not going to be an easy task, as I said to you, because you have some people are like me. You have to convince me, not because you build the biggest building in St. George's, I must come out and vote for you. I may be more concerned with how you treat the environment, how you treat the development of our next generation of young people. So there has to be a product that you can sell to people. And that's what we're working on. Because unfortunately, I think too much of Grenada is focused on you can buy everything. You can, in other words, to me, bribe seems to be an integral part of everything we do now. I want to come to that in a moment. The teachers thing, we're hearing about giving an ex gratia to those who in strike. I mean, yes, I suppose they'll be glad to receive it. But should the state ever conceive a thing like that? It is really and truly a bribe, because the union represents everybody. There's a law that was passed since the PRG era that whether or not you like it, if a union is the union authorized through membership vote to be here in your media, the people who choose not to join because they benefit, they pay an agency fee. So they will benefit from anything that comes out of a negotiation or agreement. But then to say to people, because you did not do that, you're going to get an ex gratia. I mean, I couldn't think of anything more corrupted than this. I mean, it's a disbelief for those of us who are, I still pay my union dues. So for those of us who are still a strong supporter and a believer that unions remain, and as far as I know, will always remain the most trusted friends of workers, regardless to how you think. The government certainly has interest in the workers, but the unions are always, and forevermore, I think unions will. Despite what you may think about leaders, I spent 25 years in it, and it's 25 years I cherish. It's the best engagement I've ever had.
Speaking of the ex gratia payment to the non-strikers,
non-strikers.
I mean, one could never know how the government is thinking, but why would you think such a move had to be made or needed to be made by the government to reward non-strikers?
Well, it's all meant to, I mean, one of the things some employers, I will tell you, do very well, is that they conspire as to how to undermine trade unions. There's no doubt about it. The reason why you've seen a proliferation of contract labor, and I hope young people as yourself and others recognize that, because when you get to my age, you will have nothing much except the fact that if you pay the NIS, you get what you're really paying. And when I came into the public service, after 2 years, I became a public servant appointed through the Public Service Commission, meeting teachers, meeting public officers. And I'm not talking about people who perhaps you will say choose to be contract workers. There are people who prefer to be contract workers, no doubt about that. But that is forced upon some. But the thing is, and the law remains the same. In fact, a friend of mine who was in the movement with me said to me, Ray, the law has not changed. The Labor Code and the Teachers Act remain the same. I have both of them in front of me. And it's something that the unions and something that the workers must use to ensure that after a period of time, you are legitimized once you have the qualification. So I think the reason for the ex gratia is to really embarrass the leadership of the union, to separate the sheep from the goat. I mean, you didn't strike, you didn't take any action, and you are rewarded. And those who are rewarded, yes, they were hurt for a year and months, and you are now giving them back their money. but you're not giving them that ex gratia. So clearly, to some extent, you're saying to those who take action, next time, think before you act. And that shouldn't be, because unions play a role that the government itself needs. I mean, the government represents so many different arms. The union and the employers, a federation, that's a union also too. Why do you think they have it? You think they have it just because they want to form a group? They too sit down and look at the development of Grenada, and they determine where their influence perhaps should go. The trade union movement does the same thing too. And you may not like whatever industrial action, but I notice also that there's a new agreement, and I mean, I didn't see the official copy, so I'm just reading what somebody put up on a site. When you look at what is in it, you ask the question, I mean, how much common sense was put into that? I mean, some of it you could sign it, but it means nothing. When you go to the court, or when you go anywhere, the first thing, if you're a teacher, the teacher's act will be the one that you will certainly, the act, I think it was reviewed in 2002 or thereabout, and the labor code. That is what's going to make sense. So to say to teachers or to say to workers that you can't sign a thing to say you will not take any extreme form of industrial action, that is determined by the members and the leadership. And let me say one other thing. I don't know, I don't like dignifying information that I can't verify, but I think I'll verify this one. The question about having the teacher withdraw the case, I would hope that is not done. I think the teacher should pursue the case. I think it's going to set a standard, not just for her, it's going to set a standard for everybody, because as you know, the argument is, yes, some people argue that the employer have a right to deduct if you didn't work, but there's a process. And those who are appointed public servants, they are appointed via the Public Service Commission. So the ministers who are elected by the people, really and truly, they don't have the authority to hire and fire. Yes, they can fire their driver, they can fire their personal assistant, but people who are coming through the public service, they're the only ones who are authorized to make that kind of decision. If people in work, then there's a process. You go through the process that is documented, or the protocol. But you can't arbitrarily just determine. Let me tell you one case. I remember when I was in GIS at one point, there was a gentleman, may his soul rest in peace. There was this argument that he wasn't showing up to work. They ended up in front of the Public Service Commission. But one thing he did, whether he did it legitimately or whatever, he signed the register every day, a register of attendance. When they reach in front of the PSC, the first thing the chairman then asked, can I see the register, the attendance book? And he said, the gentleman signed every working day. Yes, he missed a day or two, but there's no case, because he was there every day. You are the one at fault. I wasn't director then. He said, because you should have ensured this gentleman, if he signed the book, is given work to do every day. You can't just say he didn't come and he's not coming to work. Well, how did he sign the book? Right. He had to be somewhere in the building, because the book is not in the street. So I'm saying the government itself faltered, and they should not use the camouflage that they're using now with a long list wanting people to drop keys, paying ex gratia, and writing all sorts of things that really and truly, when you add it up, is just a cover to make the politicians look better than they really are. But then again, that don't make you look better. Confidence in you is what will make you look the way you should, not documentation.
On that note, let's take a break. Those of you logged on and tuned in, keep it locked to Classic and the GBN. We're going to take a break and come back inside with the discussion. This is To The Point.
Part of our social.
color and life with energy waiting to just burst out. That youthful vibe. Or are you a classic? You love the old school, but you still know how to keep it relevant. Kinda like a retro mix. Nah? Hey, maybe you're just refined. A fine, classy, chic piece of refined elegance. No matter who you are, Sissons has that outside color to match that inside feeling. Visit any of our retail or distribution outlets and ask for our tropical modern color collection. Sissons, good looks that lasts.
Hi, I'm Francis Urias Peters. To really know who I am, you must look at the plays that I've written over the past 30 years, because they reflect hard work, discipline, and my inner beliefs. Now, these values were shaped by my earlier bringings, because I was always curious about my roots and my identity as a Caribbean man. Now, I'm a good listener, and K105 has always been a great source of education and entertainment. Now, while the station name may have changed over the years, it has always provided valuable information which enabled me as a playwright to document and to celebrate our history, our behavior, and our achievements. K105 is my choice. It's the national station.
EC Polymer Notes, our new money.
Here's how you can detect genuine EC Polymer notes. Feel. Polymer notes feel smoother than the material from which paper notes are made. Also, the front of each note has raised bumps at the top left-hand corner. These bumps form shapes that are familiar to you. Look. Look for the clear window at the front and back of each note. This window allows you to see through the notes. If you hold the notes up to the light, you'll see the value of the note in an area of plain colored print. Tilt. A holographic foil is on the $100, $50, and $20. The images move and their colors change when you tilt the notes. Remember, detecting genuine EC Polymer notes is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Feel, look, and tilt.
EC Polymer Notes. Cleaner, safer, stronger.
That's not how you cross the pedestrian crossing.
Really? One day I just woke up and I saw pedestrian crosswalks on the road. No one really showed me how to use them properly.
Well, this is how it's done. You never cross before doing these things. They might save your life. First, when you get to the crosswalk, you stop. You look left, you look right. If there's a vehicle coming, you put your hand out, making eye contact with the driver, indicating that you want to cross. And only when the vehicle comes to a complete stop, you quickly cross to the other side.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact. Wait for pedestrian to cross to the other side, then you happily continue on your journey. This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
See it first on GBN. All the stories, from politics to industrial unrest. Tourism.
Light it up. Light it up. Station to Grenada.
Entertainment. Sports and culture.
Great shot there of Anderson Peters from Grenada, the Commonwealth Games bronze medalist.
See more on GBN, your most credible source for information. Nightly at 7.
Part of our social media revamp, the GBN is committed on providing accurate information by just one click through our social media platforms. You can now follow our Facebook page at GBN Television, together with our sister stations Classic FM Grenada and Hot FM Grenada. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Grenada Broadcasting Network. They say one picture is worth 1,000 words. Now you have the opportunity to follow us on Instagram at GBN_news and our newly added WhatsApp feature to our news and current affairs department on telephone number 473-405-3052. GBN, with you, anywhere, everywhere.
Welcome back to The Point. We are speaking with Ray Roberts this morning, representing the National Democratic Congress. It's time to open the phone lines. I see the phones have already been ringing, 435-2041. If you can please keep your comments, questions, queries, or concerns to 3 minutes or less, that would be greatly appreciated. You can also pose your questions on the WhatsApp. Typed questions, do not voice or video call the WhatsApp. We can't take the questions, but type them and I will relay them for you. Let's take our very first phone call of the program. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Morning, I'm good.
Brother Ray.
Good morning.
I listened to you this morning, but let me say something. I want to warn the teachers and them. The action that's been taken by the teachers and them, no, is not only for them, no, for the present, but for the future, for the other teachers. It's like the administration telling the teachers who didn't strike, I know I'm wrong, but I'm giving you $500. Take it. Go and break your neck for me. And when you break your neck, I will come to your funeral. This is the stage that they want to set. They know they're wrong. I hope the individuals don't withdraw that matter in the court, because this administration knows they cannot win. So it is a thing now to bribe the teachers who didn't strike, but they have to be careful at taking it. But you can't bribe me, you can't fool me into doing anything against the other teachers who strike. Stand up is one unit. Stand up together. They're already $500. It is a bribe. We know it's a bribe. They know they're wrong. They know they cannot win. So they're trying to see if they could give a $500 to break your neck for them, and they'll come to a funeral. Teachers, stand up, not only for now, the teachers to come are just standing up for them, for the misuse, the abuse of power by that administration. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Well, all I'll say, I'm certain about that. I know the President, Marvin Handel. I know Kenny and the whole leadership, and I have the greatest respect for the membership, highly intelligent people, and I'm sure they would not be in any way intimidated, first of all. I don't think unions are intimidated. The teachers are really one of the outstanding unions in Grenada in terms of being able to exist in a cohesive way. Yes, we all will have our challenges. So I have no doubt that the teachers, with their attorneys and their own intelligence, will certainly find a path that is amicable and not being led into any compromising position because of $500. I think that's a disrespect, but I mean, I will understand if you get easy money. Perhaps you should utilize it. And I know the teachers do a lot of work. You know, you look at the sports, and that's one of the things. Let me just make a point here on that. I want this thing to come to an end for a lot of reasons. I mean, sports is dear to me. And last year, when I looked at what happened, annually there are about close to 103 sports meets in Grenada, pre-primary, primary, secondary, the Grenada Athletic, right? Clubs. And you look at this thing last year. I mean, we stage managed something in Queen's Park, and I'll give them some credit. There were some athletes who produced good times. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is you want the wider society to be engaged. There's the basketball tournament and the Carnage here. You look at it. They had 4 ladies teams. The simple reason some of the matches in the past used to go over 4 and 5, and you had the teachers who are not getting paid for that. They are there. I follow, so I can talk. And this year, you just had 4 schools. In fact, I saw your alma mater being beaten that badly. And I was wondering, I think they made about 2 points against Happy Hill. Congratulations to Happy Hill. They won the ladies' title beating high school. But again, we need to motivate our teachers, because everything that comes out of this country has to start in the home and with the teachers. They are the ones who create the country we have. I mean, as adults, yes, we have a role to play. But, I mean, I am with Paralympics, and I'm trying to get that aspect of Grenadian society going. And we are dependent on teachers because the physically challenged athletes in schools, yes, we may create the environment, but what about the sporting environment? The teachers are the ones going to be doing that. So I really hope that there's a settlement to it, but I don't think the settlement I'm hearing there about this giving of money and so forth. We want something that is certainly more respectable, and I'm sure the teachers will demand that.
Okay, let's go back to the phone line. Good morning.
Good morning, Rosalind, and good morning, Mr. Roberts.
Morning, my dear.
How are you, sir?
I would not complain. Wonderful.
Great. Don't complain, pray. You know, I have been thinking about something I haven't experienced recently, and I think I need to speak about this. Now, there's a particular utility company that when you pay your utility bill, you get an email saying that you visited the office, etc. And then they ask you to do a survey. Now, you look at the survey and you answer the questions that you want. You convey the information you want to convey. Now, the first time I got this thing, I did the survey, but I did not submit it immediately. So when I was about to close back my email, I went back to it to submit it. Do you know what I discovered? The selection I made was not the selection that was going to be submitted. It was already preconditioned for the answers they want people to give them, so that when you submit it, they get an answer that they want. Because down the road, they might have something to say, okay, well, we did many surveys and this is what the people want, whereas it's not necessarily what the people chose. Now, when I saw that, I didn't submit it, I just shut it down. That led me to think, when there is an election, with all these electronic gadgets that we use to tally and blah, 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 could this be a possibility in an election where they already pre-set up where they want the results to go? So even though you're putting what is generally true and factual, it doesn't come out that way. And I think that's a concern for Grenadians, and it's a frightening experience. So this is what I want to share. So we better, in all we think about that. When you go to vote, you vote on a paper. So they have to take those papers, tally them, and put them into a machine to tally. Does the machine take what it sees, or it is already preconditioned for the result that is wanted? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the only thing I will say, I'm not too sure I have received a similar survey, but I will trust that whatever we do it with principle, and remember that whatever we do sets a standard for tomorrow. And I would hope that the experience you had perhaps was not actually a reality. The elections, we talk about elections and voting. That's why it's necessary to have the confidence of the wider society. Because, yes, you'll always have politicians debating and questioning, and if you're in opposition, perhaps at times you could be extreme. But the point I'm making here is that when the wider society accepts something, I'm not talking about a party here, I'm not talking about the two parties having a convention and everybody obviously just agree. I'm talking about the wider society, the churches, the community groups, the professional groups. We used to involve them once, the Chamber of Commerce, the employers, the trade union, the Conference of Churches. Now there are Assemblies Conference, the Pentecostal Conference. These are issues that such organizations must take an interest in and ensure that the process is important, that you have a knowledge of the process and you can stand up and say, look, we have examined the process and we believe it has a credibility. But as we see here from the electoral office, the letter to the civil society, you agreed on something and then you went back to your principal advisor and you now say that there's no need for it. I don't think the people in civil society, and I used to be there, so I know it's a wide cross-section of people, legal as well as academics, as well as ordinary people. So we need to pay attention to things like that.
A WhatsApp question asks, Ray, why when the purging of the list commenced, especially in Northeast, and over 50 people in one polling division had to be removed, why did NDC sit back and did absolutely nothing to ensure it was completed and the outright honest winner declared? This was clear to all that that particular seat was a win plus others. So, are you prepared to continue taking losses and not contesting when there is a clear indication that the NDC won a seat and maybe more?
Well, let's put it this way. You could only learn from your mistakes. And we are not ignoring mistakes of the past. Clearly, in hindsight, we want to believe that we should have been a little more aggressive, not just in Northeast, but as I said to you in the South, we're not contesting whether who win or not in the South. We're contesting that the list, as I said, there were people who we are certain emerged. I mean, I'm not saying that because it's a black population, it's only black people should be voting, but quite clearly, questions must be asked when people show up with passports and other things, and I don't think it's illegal too. But the point we're making here is that they're strange. They're strange to the whole process. People on both sides apparently, just didn't know who they were. So I'm saying that we're going to learn from that process. I know our public relations teams, Sister Claudia Joseph, who's an attorney, I know that we've been guided by her legal advice and others. And I'm sure that next time around, we will be more thorough in going through the list and ensuring that, we stand up for whatever rights that we believe that should be adored.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Blossom and your followers. Good morning, Mr. Roberts.
Morning.
Good to hear you.
And thank you. And I'm speaking to you, Ray, as a trade unionist, not so much as a politician this morning. And the matter with the teachers, and it pains me because I'm a former teacher, as some people may or may not know. And I know the sacrifices that teachers make. And for this thing to be dragging on into its second year unresolved, it really pains me. But I'm, a couple of things stood out to me, because here we are listening to the Minister of Education, the chief educator in the country, and I'm hearing some things which sound bizarre. For instance, what is an incentive? An incentive is an inducement to motivate future conduct. That's what an incentive is. So you're trying to influence future conduct. You can tell, for instance, a salesman, you'll get 30% commission on whatever you sell. The Ministry of Finance can tell its tax collectors, if you collect anything above a certain threshold, we'll give you a 10% or 5% or 1%. That's an incentive. So you're trying to influence future behavior. Now, how could you, as a Minister of Education, refer payments that were due over a year ago as an incentive? An incentive to do what? That's why I have to agree with the folks who say it seems to be like a bribe. It seems to be trying to influence future behavior. I don't know what she means by incentive, but the English language is very clear of what an incentive is. That is not an incentive as I understand it. Secondly, work to rule. Again, we understand that teaching, and because I've been a teacher, is a unique profession, and we know the sacrifices that teachers make. But work to rule is work according to the rule. It is the norm. Everybody, if you have an 8 to 4 job or a 9 to 5, that's the rule. And unless you change the rules, once you keep the rules, you should not have any fear of penalty. You're doing what the rule says. And to say that work to rule should be reserved as a last resort for extreme circumstances, this sounds bizarre. It should be the default setting. the default, like all the young people would say. It is the norm. And to say that work to rule, which means work according to the rules that you are employed under, should be left as a matter for extreme circumstances. This too, to me, very bizarre coming from a minister of education who should understand language and should be an example for the use of language in our country. That's my contribution.
Thank you.
Well, what I would conclude saying again that you have the labor code and the teachers ordinance, and that is what I'm sure will guide the functioning of the GUT. I don't know, I mean, I quite agree with him. The language doesn't sound very ministerial. I would have thought that you would find another way if you want to communicate to teachers. But whatever is in the labor code, that is where you're going to go. I mean, I can understand what the government is trying to do, hoodwink and create a facade that, they are now disciplining the teachers and they're giving them back the money, but they're giving them back, putting them under strict manners, or you would say in the PRG, heavy manners. As I said, I doubt that will impact the teaching profession. They know what the labor code says on industrial action. They know what the teachers' ordinance reflect. And that's what they will. I mean, the minister clearly has the media on her side in terms of the utilization of it. You have the Government Information Service and other arms. So you need to see something to your constituents, and that is what I think it is. But Jude, I quite agree with you that those seems out of context, because the only context you should have referred to is what is written in these two books.
A question on the Grenada Broadcasting Network YouTube channel asks, the Prime Minister's Independence Address, he mentioned all the dignitaries and their spouses, including the Acting Commissioner Martin and his wife, but never mentioned former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas and his wife. Please comment.
Well, I hope that is not a reality, and if it did, I would trust that a letter of an apology would have been done, because we want to pay homage and respect to our leaders of the past, whether they are in office or not. I would hope that was an error in judgment that would be certainly revisited. Prime Minister Tillman Thomas is a very dignified Grenadian, and I'm not saying politicians. I mean, I have the greatest respect for this man. As I said to people, I wrote in the second edition of the Grenadian Voice, and I remember when Mr. Pierre came to Radio Free Grenada and asked for me, I was so frightened. Peter David was my news director, and I said to him, this man wants me to write a story. I want you to edit it. I still have the story, and it was published. And they pick up everybody. Tillman and everybody went, took me to Richmond Hill for 3 years. So that tells you a man of principle, and so many other things that he has stood up for. So I would hope that if that was done, listen to the tape. I would say to the advisors of the PM and make sure that is corrected.
Can you please comment on the tariff by NWASA, because the Prime Minister mentioned he got $1.25 million to fix the water issue. Now NWASA is claiming the tariff is to fix the same thing we were told by the Prime Minister.
Well, I've not heard both of them to the point where I could make a judgment, but I would say to people that NWASA certainly, they have been trying to expand to meet the requirements. I live in the South, and I know it's a growing population. And I can't complain. I certainly have enjoyed a 24-hour water coming to my home. And I would hope that the investment will serve all the people of Grenada.
Let me take the phone call before I take the WhatsApp question. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good.
I want to go back on the Minister of Education a little bit more to you. She said about protecting our girls sometime last week on the news. And I do think we need to protect our girls. But what about protecting our families? What about promoting family values? I think there's a breakdown in marriage in this country, and I think we should at least, try to protect marriage. And I'm just saying that she should focus on that a little bit. Talking about protecting marriage, you know, because, you know, you can't have strong girls and have weak homes. You can't build places to put girls to fix them when you have weak families, you know. So basically, start with the marriage part first. Start with the home. Protect our marriage first, you know. You got to protect that first.
Thank you very much, Kola.
Well, very interesting there, and he made a good point in the sense that if you look at you use the registry because you have to register and so to get married and whatever it is. That number has sunk to an all-time low in Grenada. You know, I remember when I used to be here in the news, it used to be around 700-800 marriages a year. The last time I checked, it would have been under 500. That's people getting married in Grenada. So that number is, and again, it goes back to society. Yes, we need to protect people, but it has to start, everything has to start in the home. And we have to find a way to create the parenting, and the schools, perhaps, that's the foundation. You know, I say to people every day that I cherish. In fact, we sit down in the community at times, and people my age and more and over, they reflect on the days in Grand Anse. I mean, there was a homemakers group in Grand Anse run by the Catholic Church. There was a recreation center. That's where I learned to play table tennis. There was a library, and they were all integral in the community. I mean, I don't know there's any homemakers thing anywhere. Maybe Birch Grove is the last point. But as a young girl, you went there and you learned to make dishes. Mm-hmm. And you came home and you want to experiment. I know they do a bit in school and what have you know, but some of it still need to be in the community.
One comment on YouTube says, he did mention it, but lower than normal in my view. I'm assuming that's in relation to the PM addressing former Prime Minister Tilman Thomas in his independence speech.
Well, I would want to believe, knowing the PM as I do, I would think he would dignify every person who, you know, is in the protocol line.
A question on the WhatsApp. It's very long, so I try to condense it as possible. I want to urge Mr. Roberts to go to the leader and executive of the NDC and start to mobilize and gear up for elections. The NDC party is too confined with the older age group in Grenada. Approach of a method of not attacking the NNP but only focusing on what you can do better than the NNP.
We take your advice. What I would say to we hope that we're not failing to recognize that in many of the senior citizens there's wisdom. We're not going to say re-employ so many as the government is doing. We believe, you know, for example, the re-employment of the head of the physical unit. We think that's a total disrespect to young people, and so many of them who are qualified, who have had exposure at the highest level, hold masters in various areas in physical, in construction and what have you. We think we wouldn't want to go down that route, but our party is an all-inclusive party. The challenge we face, we don't have anything to offer other than the quality of development. And that may be hard to sell to some young people simply because perhaps the other side offers, we just heard what they're offering to teachers who didn't strike. We can offer $500 or even $100. So we growing as a population, we growing our people on the basis that you must become a productive citizen, capable of contributing not just to yourself but to the wider society. That is not easy to sell. We knock in doors, we engaging youths. The question is, we need to get people to recognize more and more that what we see now in Grenada is absolutely chaos. I mean, let me just look at the debate on the environment. I mean, look what is happening when some rain comes in Monroe. You see it yourself. You see any planning to create drainage for the houses that are going up on the hill, big houses? You see any central planning as to how we treat with garbage? You go in some areas, you see the trucking of the garbage. I mean, I could talk long by me. They come 12 o'clock in the day, 5 in the evening. Sometimes they come in the morning. So those are things we as a society, we need to create the growth and development that people would appreciate. These things must be done systematically. And my friend, we take your advice, and we certainly wish you can join us in helping us to mobilize as many young people, not just for politics, but for their own worth, their own self-development. That is more important to us than anything else. I mean, if you have money, you raise money and you could bribe people and get them to do what you want. That is not the philosophy of our party. The philosophy of the party that was formed by George Brizan and others is a party of good governance. I hear some people say you can't eat it. But how much, I mean, corruption, I don't know how much that does for our nation, except when you look down the line, the generation we're going to be succeeded by, they're going to be in chaos. And as we've seen, look at our roads. We bring in some big trucks. The roads are being destroyed. No thinking again.
Well, Mr. Roberts, thank you so much for
my dear.
Through.
And I want a hairstyle like that. How do I get a hairstyle like that?
I'll tell you off air.
Right,
it's a secret. You can share it with everybody.
Well, again, Blossom, it was a pleasure, and thanks to our viewers and listeners. And again, do have a wonderful day.
Thank you. That's the end of the program this morning. Thank you for listening, tuning in, viewing. Appreciate your comments, your questions. I see the phones are still ringing, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Thank you so much again. That's my time with you for today. I'll be back with you bright and early tomorrow, God willing. I think I see Joseph standing by to come on for mid-morning buzz. I know yesterday Auntie Brenda wasn't feeling well, so the cold is taking a toll on her voice, so it's possibly still troubling her. So hopefully she feels better and will be back with us in the soonest or the shortest order. Have a good Tuesday. If you can't be good, be cautious. Keep it locked right here on Classic and the GBN for mid-morning buzz. Until then, have a good one.